onye biri biko ọ bụrụ na ọ ga-ekwe mme agara m eji Igbo pụta ihe niile nwere Igbo mana ọ bụrụ na anyị sị ka anyị were Igbo kwuwe ya nkata Naijiria kpara udo anyị n'isi bụ asụsụ bekee ka eji kpaa ya ọ ya ka o ji gbagwoju anyị anya n'ụzọ pụrụ iche anyị wee buru agbụ ahụ ha kere anyị na-akpagharị kemgbe afọ nnukwu ịtọ agbụ ahụ nwa mpempe akwụkwọ nji n'aka ekwesịghị ịkarị nwa nkeji ole na ole iji gụpụta ya ma tupu mbanye n'ime ya let me respond to my good brother, the senator, because he also referred to me as he was making his comment. It's been a long fight, but I also want to assure, I'm happy that my senior colleague, who was also a lecturer in the university from where I was trained, so if I say I am tackling the constitution of Nigeria, it was because I learned something from where the knowledge required, to do this had come from. So it goes to the credit of that same faculty of law in the University of Nigeria here in Enugu. Having said that, I go back to Senator Abaribe, who talked about what had been done in terms of amendments. By 2007, when we went to court to say that we have not made a constitution, it was to give a legitimate framework within which to engage what Nigeria had done against our people, so that it becomes constitutional grievances well defined that will be addressed in the manner the 21st century world will address it, and towards going to referendum. And I'm happy that steps are being taken. But the strategy here is that Nigeria was put together as a marriage. For those who have cared to look at the documents we've been circulating, it is by the cablegram of 1913, which Lord Harcourt said that they were given in the annexation that was called amalgamation. Lord Harcourt did say that they were bringing the Southern Protectorate to be joined with the Northern Protectorate in a marriage between the well-behaved Northern youth and the Southern Lady of Means, so that it was clear to the British makers of Nigeria what they were putting together. And it is the consequences of those things that we live with. They've managed to put a constitution in place that make it permanent. So it is that same antelope we're chasing. What the Lower Niger Congress has done differently, and we have no quarrel with our brothers in the National Assembly, especially the current crop, what the Lower Niger Congress has done in its approach is to, like that wife, that marriage that has come to where it has become unbearable, that wife that carries her bags and goes to her father's house, from which point the discussion will be held for how the marriage continues. So when we say that the constitution can no longer be the basis of the union, we are creating a condition that must be resolved, and that is where the Nigeria will now choose whether we stay back in our father's house or they come forward for us to work out how it will continue. So it is that same antelope we're chasing. By God's grace, I can see we have encircled it. Nigeria has no means of maneuvering out of where we've gotten now. Thank you very much. And therefore, I will run as fast as I can wherever the 10 minutes gets us to. I will have to stop. Not to forget to mention the World Igbo Congress that brought us here together today. I had the privilege of addressing their convention. I had the privilege of addressing their convention in 2012 in Orlando, Florida. And it may interest us to learn that the World Igbo Congress has an accreditation at the UN as the body of our people, Igbo diaspora in the US, taking steps to address whatever they can address from there concerning what is happening to us here. And they have an accreditation in the UN for the purpose of having access to come to articulate And they were kind enough, the executive director was kind enough, of course having consulted, to make that access available to the Lower Niger Congress on ground at home. And from that point in 2012, the Lower Niger Congress has had physical presence in the UN, for which reason I had the privilege of leading an NLC team to the UN in 2015 after the election that seemed to have fractured Nigeria. And we have sat face to face with the senior diplomats who will deal with the matter if it goes to referendum. They've looked at our case, they've told us what is possible and what is not possible. The Constitution of Nigeria is there, briefly goes from Nigeria. It is being discussed at that level. And the credit must go to the World Igbo Congress for giving us that unlimited access at the UN. Of course, Nigeria is sending more people because we feed them to it. We've been there before they realized that the matter was going there. There's nothing African Mohammed is able to do on that account when the decision was taken. So that's just the World Igbo Congress is doing a lot more than we can see. And there's even more that happens in the pipeline concerning this issue. I now return to starting on the existing protocol. I have something titled The Trinity in One of the Igbo Question, the Eastern Nigeria Question, and the Biafra Question in Nigeria, a case for self-determination referendum. Protocol, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of us to the great city of Enugu. I must commend the conveners, because we talked about that. In my reckoning, I particularly recall the 2012 convention in Lando, where I had gone to share with the Igbo US diaspora important developments regarding the issues that now overrun the Igbo question in Nigeria, which first emerged in 1966 as the Eastern Nigeria question in Nigeria, turning rapidly in 1967 into what became the Biafra question, recently resurrected by the younger generation of the East in what has raged on as the Biafra agitation. So it is the same Igbo question that became Eastern Nigeria question that became Biafra question. In my reckoning, it is this trinity in one question that this summit has saddled itself with the task of interrogating with a view to finding viable answers for a better navigation of the future of Nigeria. Senator Everybody say we must find an answer to the question of Ebe Igbo Nende, Kedehi Igbo Chok. Short of all embellishments, this question simply seeks answers to the issues relating to equitable, consensual protocols of mutual coexistence in the Nigerian Union from the perspective of the Igbo and by extension Eastern Nigeria. It becomes Biafra when consensus failed as it did in 1967. We are looking for consensus. If it doesn't work, there must be something we can fall into, not to hang in the balance. The historical beginnings of the Nigerian Union is too well known to bear much repetition here. But for the sake of the younger generation here present, that was denied the teachings of history as a school subject in their country and by their country, and who for no fault of theirs, I'm talking to the young people in this, I saw many of them. Your country denied you the history, the knowledge of what happened yesterday, so that you will never find an answer to it when you begin to confront the reality. It is it's no fault of theirs that they are totally uninformed about how their country, Nigeria, particularly the Igbo homeland, arrived at the very sorry path and quagmire it now is in, and who, befuddled by the pernicious reality they live in, raised a campaign for the recovery of some fabled lost paradise, Biafra. A little historical excursion will be undertaken here. Nigeria was a colonial era creation of the British. The country was in January 4th, 1914, artificially coupled together by the annexation of the then Protectorate of Southern Nigeria to the then Protectorate of Northern Nigeria in an exercise officially tagged amalgamation. The mind-boggling failure of this otherwise giant promise on the African continent has been the subject of many researches and academic inquisition. They decades of routine, massive bloodletting, which punctuate these monumental failures, came to global reckoning in the years 1967 to 1970, when Eastern Nigeria, one of the 4 federating regions that constituted, suddenly found itself in the genocidal war, which began with pogroms. For those who are asking, why are these boys on the street willing to die? Let me give you an insight as articulated by some of those who created the problem, at least their parents did. In 1999, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi had at a public lecture in Kaduna, looking at the same problem from their own side, told those who gathered, and I'm quoting him, he says, the northern bourgeoisie and the Yoruba bourgeoisie have conspired to keep the Igbo out of the scheme of things. They have been defeated in war, rendered paupers by monetary policy fiat, their properties declared abandoned and confiscated, kept out of strategic public sector appointments, and deprived of public services. The rest of the country forced them to remain in Nigeria and has continued to deny them equity. Our present political leaders have no sense of history. There is a new Igbo man who was not born in 1966 and who neither knows or cares about Nzog and Ojukwu. There are Igbo men on the streets who were never Nigerians, who were never Biafrans. They were born Nigerians and they are Nigerians, but suffer because of the actions of earlier generations. They will soon decide that it is better to fight their own war and maybe find an honorable peace than to remain in the contemptible state in perpetuity. The northern bourgeoisie and the Yoruba bourgeoisie have exacted their pound of flesh from the Igbo. For one Sadana, one Tababalewa, one Akintola, one Okojebo, hundreds and thousands have died and suffered and continue to die. If this issue is not addressed immediately, no conference will solve the problems of Nigeria. Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, as a public lecture, issued Arewa House, 1999, 11 September. It is on account of that we are saying to all, including the federal government of Nigeria, that the least, because the outcome of all of those shenanigans has produced a constitution that has my signature in his preamble as the maker. He says, we the people have made. It is that constitution that lists 68 items that I cannot touch. I have coal in Enugu, I cannot generate electricity. I cannot transmit electricity because somebody wrote it as a decree. I cannot tie the road from Enugu to Port Harcourt, except I go and prostrate in Sokoto. I cannot run the port of Port Harcourt, which was property of Eastern Nigeria under Emma Obara. I cannot organize my simple security. The little business I want to do, I must go and get licensed in Abuja. 68 items. And therefore, that same constitution took us from being one region out of 4 into a hopeless minority in Nigeria. We now have 36 states. How did we come about those 36 states? Somebody sat down, cutting them because there's oil money to be shared. Now the federation cannot proceed on that front. We are saying that we have gone to everything that needs to be done for peace to reign, for a peaceful resolution of this matter. By the time we convened PRONACO in 2005, it was because we had come to the conclusion that if nothing gets done to restructure, this place will collapse and will be more disastrous than the first one. It was Aburi Accord, Aburi Agreement that we reenacted in PRONACO, and we came out with a draft constitution that resolved all issues across board. It was a delegate from Katsina that moved the motion to adopt the finished product on the floor of the conference. Muhammadu Buhari was part of the northern delegation that came to that conference. I was the secretary of the Constitution Drafting Committee that dealt with the matter of reducing into writing what the ethnic nationalities of Nigeria had put together as basis for coexistence that would take them back to federalism. Tinubu was governor in Lagos, and he was very much involved. The one that is minister now was his chief of staff, who dealt with us day and night. And there's nobody in government now. The acting president happened to have been the attorney general in the period. There's nothing to be discussed in that matter that has not been discussed in private with all of the people who tell us now that the matter is non-negotiable. And we therefore say, okay, if they have come to non-negotiable, like the memorandum and articles of association of a company, that is what the constitution is to a country. Our argument, in case there are some of us who do not understand it, our argument, and which we took to court in 2007, to say that if we have a memorandum, an article of association that is now a forgery over and above what was agreed, because they toppled the one we had up to 1967, we can now go and make a new one. South Africa had a similar experience with apartheid. It was not by amendments that they killed apartheid. They agreed that they had to agree, and they went into the process in Kodesa. We are saying today that it is possible. We're not anarchists. We're not saying let us go to government house, and that's why we have the quarrel with conquer and occupy, Biafra now kind of movement. We say no. Let us agree that we have to make a constitution that is consensual, and it won't take us anything other than taking a time frame to do it. Let those in government house remain in the transitioning that do we have do we have a governance in place today under this constitution? You can't fetch water with basket. And we therefore say let us just take a time frame and go and work out something that will recommit us to the project Nigeria. As at today, the default position, if nothing gets done, the default is that there is no federation in place, because federation is a union of constitutions. The constitution that federates to form Nigeria were toppled in 1966. It has been in position since that time, and it's injuring us. And we say, either we fix it now, or everybody will stay back in his father's house like we've already moved back to our father's house. I must stop here so that other people can make their own contribution. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't have enough time for him to go on. As you can see, Owen had a lot to say.